Amber and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to do my Backlist Readathon wrap up. I ended up reading everything that was on my TBR for the Backlist Readathon, and that was really all I was trying to accomplish for the Backlist Readathon. So with that being said, let's get started. The first book I read for the Backlist Readathon was The Radium Girls. This is a nonfiction work talking about the radium industry and the women who had been painting watch heads in order to make them glow in the dark, and how the technique was to lick, dip, and paint and repeat how ingesting radium had affected them. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. This book follows the law and the science and the history of these women, and it is super detailed. Sometimes it can feel a little overwhelming and dragged out, but it is a dark take on one of the topics in history that you probably haven't heard about. So if this sounds at all interesting to you, I definitely recommend picking it up. I read The Collapsing Empire, which was the first book in a space opera series called The Interdependency, and this book is basically following 3 different people: a scientist, a starship captain, and the Empress of the Interdependency, and it talks about the flow and how it came to be and what's going on with it in this time frame. I'm giving this book 3 stars. I've kind of come to find that John Scalzi's works are pretty formulaic, and you can tell, you know, who's the bad guy, what's going to happen in the plot, and it's a very fun time. However, if I'm not super sold on the premise of the story, it's going to be less enjoyable of a time overall. And this one overall ended up being just kind of average for me, so I ended up giving it 3 stars. That being said, I don't think I'm going to be continuing on with this series. Next, I read River of Teeth by Sarah Gailey. This is a alternate history in which, with the marshlands in Louisiana, they introduced hippos as a way to combat that, and I ended up giving this book 4 stars. It is a Western alternate history, and that was not something I thought I was going to enjoy, but here we are where I really enjoyed it. The only reason I gave this a 4 instead of a 5 star is because when the book is starting out and it's introducing you to all of your characters, it kind of doesn't feel like the story is flowing as well as it could. That being said, I really enjoyed this, and I cannot wait to conclude this duology at some point this year. Next, I read Behind the Scenes, which follows a girl who does not want the limelight that her best friend is in, but that kind of changes when she accidentally becomes kind of entwined with one of her best friend's co-stars and ends up being kind of like a intern for him. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. It was a nice, refreshing book. I really enjoyed Dahlia Adler's writing. However, this brought nothing like super new to me as a contemporary romance, and I am not a big like Hollywood kind of story reader, so I only ended up giving this one 4 stars. However, right after that one, I ended up reading Under the Lights by Dahlia Adler, which was the conclusion to this duology and the second book in the Daylight Falls series. This one follows the best friend and the romance that she is having, and it is a sapphic romance, and it follows another character named Josh and his story about what kind of superstar life he kind of wants. I will be honest with you, the reason I gave this one a 4 star instead of a 5 star, despite it having a very similar feel to the first book in this series, is I did not like the character Josh's storyline in it. I enjoyed Vanessa's story a ton, and if this book had only been focusing on her, I probably would have given it 5 stars. That being said, this book focused on Josh and Vanessa, so my rating has to be focused on both of them. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. And the very last thing that I read for the Backlist Readathon was The Stars Are Legion by Cameron Hurley. This is about a woman who wakes up with no memory, and she's told that she's the only person who is capable of boarding this ship, and that every time that she does, she seems to have her memory wiped, and that she is potentially going to be the salvation of this civilization, but she could also end up being the destruction. Overall, I gave this book 3 stars. I was a bit confused about the world building in this book, and I did not like the writing. I definitely knew that going in. I think in my TBR video I said that I've heard that this book is a little bit inaccessible, and it is very brutal, and I was not expecting it to be as brutal as it was, and so that definitely affected how I was enjoying this book, especially since this is not the time for me to be reading super brutal books in that manner. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I'm overall glad that I finally have read it off of my TBR, but I don't see myself revisiting it in the future. With that being said, this is a physical representation of everything I read during the Backlist Readathon, but obviously not everything I read during the Backlist Readathon. What about you? What did you read during the Backlist Readathon? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like what you saw here today, be sure to like and subscribe. I normally post videos on Wednesdays. Thank you so much for watching, and have a nice day.